In accordance with the Texas Open Meetings Act, I hereby convene this meeting of the Water Operations Committee of the Board of Directors of the Lower Colorado River Authority. Today is Wednesday, February 18th, 2026. Time is 10:36 a.m. The quorum is present. General Counsel will record each committee member who's in attendance. Everyone please stand and pledge allegiance.
Under God, one and indivisible.
Let us pray. Dear God, we come before you today to praise your holy name. Lord, you are the way, the truth, and the light. You created the heavens and the earth. You are the author and creator of life. You are all-knowing, all-loving, and always present. Let us trust you and only you in these uncertain days. Let us seek you and stand on your word. As we begin this meeting today, Lord, I ask that you give us your wisdom and your discernment to do your will. There are so many hurting and mourning and confused in our world today. Hold them and touch their hearts with your love and spirit. Guide us as we serve your people today, Lord. Show us your will and your direction. In the name of Jesus we pray. Amen.
Amen. Amen. Thank you. If you'd like to comment on any Water Operations Committee matter today, please sign in at the registration table in the lobby on the sign-up sheet for the topic which you would like to comment on. These topics include the basic condition updates, water supply resource report update, and water management plan amendment, and general topics under the jurisdiction of the Water Operations Committee. We anticipate quite a few comments today. We'll take comments according to our protocol, which includes limiting the time for each speaker on a particular item to 3 minutes each. And we'll take comments on each item in the order they're listed in the agenda. First action item is to approve the committee meeting minutes from our January meeting. Is there a motion approved?
Make a motion to approve.
Second? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Motion passes. Are there any comments from the public related to the basin conditions update? Okay, hearing none, we'll go to basin conditions update. Kelly?
Good morning.
Morning.
Chair Lewis and Chair Cooper and members of the board, and walk you through the basin update for February. If we go here to the first slide, this is the U.S. drought monitor for, on the left is February 11th last year, and the right is February 10th last week this year. As you can see, the majority of the state is in some level of dry or abnormally dry or drought, about 98%. Interestingly enough, a little bit of the hill country is part of the state that's not in any sort of drought right now. And compared to last year, only 77% of the state was in some level of abnormally dry or drought. If we close in on our basin, you can see the area up there with the white, which is no drought at all. We did get a little bit of welcome rain last week on Valentine's Day, but we could sure use some more. Bob tells me that the drought monitor is probably going to look the same as this week without much change from the rains that we got. About 90% of our basin is in some level of abnormally dry or drought. And the middle part of our basin, as you can see, the red part there, from Lake Travis down to Columbus remains in extreme drought. the third highest level of drought in the monitor. Here's our inflows. We turned over a calendar year, so we're starting off with a blank slate showing January. January's inflows were about 16,074 acre feet, which is about 26.5% of the average, long-term average for January. This graph shows the medians. As you can see here, the median for January was about, or what we saw in January was about 45% of the long-term median inflow. That's comparing the magenta bar there to the gray bar. If we move on to the combined storage of Lakes Travis and Buchanan, this graph compares on the blue line the historic drought of record, which is 2008 to 2015, and the kind of lime green line is the drought we're currently in. As of February 1st, we were about 992,000 acre feet more than on February 1st, 2014. Any questions on any of that? Okay, let's look at the projections. So this is the projection of combined storage for Lakes Travis and Buchanan. As of February 1st, we're just over 1.7 million acre feet, or 86% full. And as of this morning, our combined storage was just under 1.7 feet, 1.69, or 85% full. As you look at the projections, the dashed lines, you can see that all the dashed lines end up somewhere between 1.65 to 1.7 million acre feet, which will mean that on March 1st, we will probably make the announcement that under the Water Management Plan, Lakeside, Gulf Coast, and Pierce Ranch operations will have interruptible stored water available for first season. Arbuckle, I'd like to report, is about 61% full this morning, and we have been pumping a little as water is available in the river to refill it. If you'll recall, we exercised it for the first time last month in helping us meet some environmental flow requirements down at the bay. And so we're working to get that filled back up. Any questions on any of that? Okay, let's look at the projection for Lake Travis. As of this morning, as of February 1st, we're at 667.34, or pretty much right at the average for February, maybe a tenth below. And as of this morning, we were at 666.63, or about 0.8 of a foot below the average for February. And you can see there the forecast is for things to ramp up and us start using water for all of our customers, firm and interruptible, in the coming months. For Lake Buchanan, on February 1st at midnight, we were at 1017.41, or about 6.5 feet above the average for February. And as of this morning, we were at 617.62, about 6.8 feet above the average for February. And just like to reiterate, it's worth noting, Lake Buchanan being this full is not a common occurrence, so we're going to enjoy the fact that we've got that storage up in Buchanan. And then lastly, let's look at a comparison of combined storage on February 1st to last year on February 1st. We're about 675,000 acre feet more this year than we were in storage February 1st last year. The weak La Nina is still in place through January and remains in place now, but it continues to weaken. And the expectations from the CPC are that it'll dissipate and we'll go to INSO neutral sometime in March. And then the forecasters right now are saying that there's a better than 50% chance that sometime during the springtime we'll go into an El Nino during the summer. And if y'all will recall, El Nino typically brings us wetter weather than the La Nina does. The Climate Prediction Center shows no trend for above, below, or near normal rainfall through May. And that's primarily that INSO neutral signal that they're seeing us move into. that's driving that. And they do forecast that the temperature through May will lean a little bit towards averaging above normal. So that's my remarks on the basin update. Do y'all have any questions for me? Okay.
Have we had any commercial releases from Arbuckle today?
The releases that we've done have been environmental so far. Yeah, that was the first time we really exercised it out of test, not in testing mode, but for use.
Any further questions? Thank you, Kelly. Moving on to agenda item 4, before we start with the report, Mr. Wilson has some information he'd like to share with us related to this.
I do, Mr. Chairman, Chair Lewis and Cooper, members of the board. As you know, increasing our region's water supplies remains one of LCRA's top priorities. And I'm so excited and thrilled to share with you all that we're exploring building yet another reservoir to increase water supplies for our fast-growing region. This comes just months after we brought the Arbuckle Reservoir online last October. Now we're going to move quickly forward with the feasibility study to determine if LCRA's property we already own, northwest of Eagle Lake in Colorado County, almost 2,000 acres, would be suitable for a large new water reservoir. The new reservoir potentially could hold between 48,000 and 80,000 acre-feet of water. That would make it larger than the Arbuckle Reservoir and 2 to 3 times the capacity of Lake Austin. The site is near an existing river intake and pump station. The potential new reservoir would add to existing supplies and help meet increasing water supply needs throughout the lower Colorado River Basin. As you know, the lower basin typically receives significantly more rainfall annually than the area around the Highland Lakes northwest of Austin. The potential new reservoir was identified in LCRA's board-approved water supply resource report as a potential strategy for helping us meet our goal of adding 60,000 acre-feet of water supplies by 2040. It's too early to know some specifics, because first we need to do our due diligence. We need to know how the site best can be used for off-channel storage and the technical, environmental, and permitting constraints. Once we have that information, we'll estimate the cost, look at funding options, and develop a timetable to bring to y'all. I'd like to take a look at a video showing where we can build the potential new reservoir. Pretty cool video. As you know, building a new reservoir takes years, so it's important to start developing new supplies before the demand arrives. Meeting future demands requires a combination of adding new supplies and using supplies we currently have in a thoughtful manner. I'm so grateful to the board for supporting our efforts to add new supplies for our region, and I appreciate the hard work and dedication of the people of LCRA who work so diligently to serve Texas as our region continues to grow. Monica's going to talk us a little bit through the WSRR and then show a map and answer any questions we can have among this proposal we're talking about today a little bit before the board. Thanks, Monica.
Yep. Okay, so back in November when we brought the WSRR to you guys for approval, this was the goal that we had set out, 60,000 acre-feet by 2040. And at the time of the adoption, we told you guys that we were going to come back later with a project because we didn't have one specific in mind. And so today, here's that update and what we're working on now. So in the WSRR presentation, we had this slide, which talks about the new water supply projects, and this included several configurations of potential new off-channel reservoir projects in the lower basin, where there's more water available for storage. The OCRs vary in size, expected firm supplies that could be made available, as well as costs. And all of these could also involve building a new pipeline and moving the water to the upper basin to a delivery point in eastern Travis County. All have costs ranging in the billions and implementation timeframes extending between 1 and 3 decades. Today, we are talking about the next step in our process and starting to vet locations for reservoir sites, beginning with the land that we already own in Colorado County, which was purchased with an off-channel reservoir similar to this in mind. So this is the site. For background, LCRA purchased 1,988 acres of land in Colorado County for $6 million in 2015. So it just makes good sense to begin with a site assessment effort with this property we already own that we purchased with the intent of building a reservoir storage project. We have hired Black & Veatch to do the first high-level assessment to evaluate the feasibility of using our existing infrastructure and water rights to accomplish this planning objective. We have an existing water right to divert at this location. We have existing intakes in the Colorado River and a pump station near this location. We have land for an off-channel reservoir. We have an existing canal that could move the water from the pump station to the new OCR. And Black & Veatch is also looking at seepage control measures for this site. Very important, seepage control. So if all of this is successful, we would begin preliminary design work, which will inform how we approach permitting both at the state and federal level. And this preliminary design will also better inform our planning for costs as well as how we would approach the design work later. Permitting could be a long road, so it's important that we begin now to work through those issues. And the construction timeline will be driven more by permitting and customer demands than anything else. So that's where we are on our new OCR project, and we'd be happy to take any questions that you have.
What kind of permitting is going to be necessary?
We will have to go through U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, U.S. Fish and Wildlife, and TCQ permitting, all of the above.
Yeah, Matt, you'll end up having to amend one of our water rights to be able to include an impoundment in that area, and then all the federal permitting that Monica just talked about. That, I think the federal permitting is going to be the most involved. And that's true for any of the locations that we look at, not just this one. It'll be for any impoundment like this will require the same.
You probably said it, but I didn't catch it. What's the estimated acre feet?
Director Mayo, I said 48,000, 80,000 acre feet. So this is a substantial opportunity. Should our due diligence and all the opportunities come back to Monica's outline for us to make a significant further investment post-Arbuckle to make new water supply available. And this is back to the philosophical direction we've worked with under the board's guidance. We believe in conservation and good stewardship, and we're doing that very proactively. We also need new water supplies for the growth in our basin and our state. So this converges, and I think in both those kind of best practices, as we're talking about trying to grow and live up those new supplies for population, because at the end of the day, Lake Travis, Buchanan, that's for human health and consumption. That's an impoundment reservoir. We use that water, and we sell that water for people to have to make sure they can run their lives. And this is a further extension of that opportunity to make sure we develop these water supplies, whether it's Arbuckle, Lower Basin, perhaps this new OCR, or using Lake Travis and Buchanan as those impoundment lakes to make sure we take care of people. Yes, sir.
So when you bought the land in 2016, did you have the water rights with that? Any water rights with that?
It was always assumed that we were going to be able to amend one of our water rights. That's exactly what we did with Arbuckle.
We just do amend how we
Yeah.
utilization. We have the water rights is how we amend that part of the
It's
process.
adding storage to run-of-the-river water rights.
Yep.
Yeah. Those old large senior water rights didn't have storage components associated with them until we started amending them to add those. So we've done that with the Gulf Coast water right at Arbuckle. We've also done some work with the Garwood water right to amend it to make it more usable for us. So the investments LCRA made many decades ago, it's actually working to make those more, better utilized.
When you use it, what methods will you use to refill it? Will it be similar to Arbuckle where you have the wells, or is it put and take from the river?
It'll be from the river, back and forth from the river.
And then to echo that, Monica said this a minute ago, Director Lassiter. When that is built, we'll be able to determine where we want to have it pumped to. And so if a customer wants to have water moved back this way, that's an opportunity. If we need water down there, we use our canals or we can use pipeline. So really where that footprint, and all the OCR should have this potential as you move closer to Austin, when you have a demand function and someone wants to make the capital investment for transport, we'll be able to utilize whether it's going further south, perhaps the canals or a pipeline, or back this way in a pipeline way, and that's use that as best fits the need of where we're trying to grow and go to with that new water supply.
So John, I have a question. As we move forward, these agencies that give us the permitting, we're so, in such a critical period of time needing water all over the United States, does that make any difference to them as far as getting the permitting to move faster?
Oh, I think aside from it carrying a sense of urgency with it as it goes through the process, because the folks that work at these agencies are looking at the same information we're all looking at, I think there's an awareness that's there. But in terms of the moving substantively their process along, it doesn't really change that. They have processes that they have to go through from a regulatory standpoint, and we'll have to go through and check all those boxes and make sure we substantively answer all their questions.
Thank you.
You bet.
I recall when we bought this, and I don't know how many members on this board were here then, because you were here, yeah. But it showed a lot of foresight on the board's part to do this, because you have to put it in perspective. We had bought the Arbuckle site, and we really honestly didn't know what we were really getting into to build a reservoir, because Arbuckle was the first reservoir that's been built on this river system since the Highland Lakes. There was some angst about spending money at that time, but the board realized that there's only so many of these sites that'll work. And so I think it was prescient on their part to buy this. This is good news. I'm glad to see us pursuing this. I think it's needed. It's going to be needed, and it's a good move forward. Any other comments or questions?
I'll just only say, echo your sentiments. Some people ask, why are you building it there? Well, that's where we can harvest. That's where the only harvestable water is in context of being run a river. I mean, we need water back this side, but that's just that's something that we're going to have to continue to work on to figure out. But being able to utilize and pick up any water, any excess water beyond what the Arbuckle could pick up and redistribute and reuse it for the bays and estuaries for our commercial people down there, that area is primed for growth. There's a lot of things going on, but the real fact is this area is where we have the greatest opportunity to harvest water and not let it just slip away and go to the bay.
And to echo that, anytime we have new supply in the lower basin, it puts less pressure on the lakes. And that's a very important takeaway. Arbuckle's already provided that. If you treat it as a system, and we're doing that right now, and Kelly and Monica and John's leadership. So if we have 80,000 acre feet of new supply, that's environmental opportunity you can address in Matagorda Bay with that, like we're doing with Arbuckle. That's growth in that part of the state that could be industrial or commercial. There are just chances you can do things which put less pressure on the lakes, treating it as a system. So this is extraordinary news for us to take this next step. We appreciate the board's support last fall, approving this WSRR. And we're looking forward to getting all the criteria that Monica talked about as it go forward, because we do need the water supply, and it's great for the basin opportunity to really understand what our next steps could be. So thank you all for all you've done.
And Kelly Payne mentioned a minute ago the water that was released from Arbuckle for environmental requirements for the bay. There was an equal amount released from the Highland Lakes. Had it not been from Arbuckle, all that water would have had to come from the Highland Lakes.
That's right.
This is a good example why it's the value of having that water down there. And this just is an expansion of that.
So I have one more question. With the administration we have right now and their far-reaching expectations, is there any chance that there'll ever be an opportunity for an in-channel reservoir again? I've heard that there never will be.
I think the federal laws that are in place have not changed. And
But they can change.
They could change, yes. That would assume that Congress would be able to push through something substantive that would change those, particularly the Clean Water Act, United States Clean Water Act, and probably an Endangered Species Act as well.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Okay. Before we move on to agenda item 5, I just want to ask, are there any public comments to be made pertaining to the Water Supply Resources Report? Here none, we'll move to agenda item 5. And we'll start with comments from the public related to the Water Management Plan Amendment. I have a sheet in front of me, so David Lindsay from the Central Texas Water Coalition.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of
morning.
the board. My name is Dave Lindsay, VP of Technical Research for Central Texas Water Coalition. You have heard me talk for many years about the trend to much lower inflows into our highland lakes. The average inflows used to be 1.3 million acre feet a year over the period of 1942 to 2007. But then we saw a steep decline. And when you look at what's happened since 2007, the average inflows are now down to 623,000 acre feet, which is over a 50% decline in effectively our water supply. To better understand the drivers of the decline, CTWC has worked closely with Dr. Jordan Fernandes of Spherus Environmental. CTWC has extended our research to include an analysis of rainfall trends over our watershed. This analysis shows that the average annual rainfall that's occurred over the watershed has not statistically changed. As such, the decline in inflows has been caused by a decline in productivity of the watershed, not a dramatic decline in rainfall. This analysis of rainfall allows a deeper look at the drought of the 50s. LCRA states that it is included in the drought of the 50s the hydrology that occurred, but that analysis reflects the inflows that were observed from the watershed that existed in the drought of the 50s, not the watershed that exists today. Of particular importance is that many of the 44,000 plus small ponds that now exist were not present back in the drought of the 50s. And they are not reflected in the naturalized flows that are utilized in LCRA's WHAM analyses. To address that issue, CTWC has developed a methodology, including input from LCRA, such as accounting for major rain events, to perform monthly adjustments to the historical naturalized flows from the drought of the 50s that are much more reflective of today's watershed conditions. When CTWC applies this analysis, the firm yield of the Highland Lakes falls to 347,000 acre feet, which is 70,000 lower than is suggested by this proposed amendment. Additionally, our analysis indicates that under 2032 Water Management Plan conditions, total lake storage from Lakes Travis and Buchanan would fall all the way down to 525,000 acre feet through a repeat of the 50s rainfall patterns. These results indicate that this proposed amendment may require additional adjustments. In conclusion, CTWC's analysis finds the proposed LCRA amendment is not sufficiently protective. It puts firm customers at risk of mandatory curtailment and puts water intakes in communities in areas such as Upper Lake Travis in danger of losing access to the water supply. I would ask LCRA to conduct its own evaluation of these major concerns and in the interim to include a provision to reopen the Water Management Plan and make necessary revisions if it finds similar results to CTWC's findings. Thank you for your consideration. CTWC stands ready to help in any way.
Thank you for your comments. Debbie Brown.
Good morning. My name is Debbie Brown. Thank you for allowing me to speak today. I appreciate your time, and I will do my best to adhere to your 3-minute time limit, but however, I do ask you to hear me out. My family has been a resident in Spicewood Beach subdivision since 1998, 28 years. Spicewood Beach was a vision of Mr. Rowland in the late 60s. What started out as a weekend fishing camp has developed into a true residential community with paved roads, electric poles, permanent residents, and those with second homes. Spicewood Beach includes in its amenities a 9-hole golf course, fishing dock, boat loading ramp, beachfront with cabanas, children's playground, a community center, and it's all operated with the POA bylaws and covenants and restrictions. We even actually have internet and fiber optic TV now. We are not a temporary campground. In the early days, our water supply was through Spicewood Beach Water Supply Corporation, which at the time when you bought a home, you became a member, and that water corporation was owned by us for 25 years. In 1999 and 2000, agreement was made and entered into with LCRA to purchase our water system as it was failing and needed more work than the community was able to handle physically and financially. The Spicewood Beach water supply was sold to LCRA for $10. LCRA acquired also Eagle Bluff and Lakeside Beach water systems during this time. LCRA was instrumental in providing the necessary improvements to well number 3, making it a reliable source of approved water. All new water lines were moved into the right-of-way easements, new distribution lines were added, as well as fire hydrants to provide increased fire protection. A new 80,000-gallon groundwater tank replaced the current leaking tank, and these improvements included running lines to Eagle Bluff, Lakeside Beach, and up the county road 5 miles to the Spicewood Beach Elementary School. During drought times, we have been on and off water restrictions dating back to November 2000. Drought conditions prevailed again beginning in 2007. 2009, conservation letters began arriving stating that Spicewood Beach Regional Water System, the new name under LCRA, had resulted in near capacity demands. And as the drought took its toll on the water system, that provided water to 1,100 residents, the well finally failed. Spicewood Beach became known as the first and only Texas town to run out of water in the state of Texas. LCRA began trucking water to the community at 6 to 8 trucks daily in the amount of 35,000 to 40,000 gallons a day. During this time of trucking and water, the restrictions were as follows. No outside use of water under any circumstances, no washing of cars, sidewalks, no watering of any vegetation. Lawns died, trees struggled. Military-style showers only. A bath? That was reserved for special occasions only. Laundry? No. Take it to the laundromat in town. No ornamental fountains are to be used. And although our faucets did not run dry, the pressure in our homes was a trickle at most times. This issue also had an impact on the elementary school located on Spur 191 that was now on the water distribution line of Spicewood Beach. They had to close down and implement a water emergency plan prior to allowing the 250 students to return to campus. At times during the trucking period, we were also placed under stage 4 water restrictions that also meant residents now could only use water for cooking and drinking, as well as being advised to boil our water. The trucking of water and restrictions continued for 2 years until LCRA was able to negotiate the sale of the system to Corex Water Utilities, now Texas Water Utilities. The sale was spurred on as LCRA felt they should not be in the retail water business as the situation turned out to be very costly. Corex bought a new raw water intake and treatment plant, so groundwater would not have to be relied on and drilled 2 new wells. So you know, we are not ungrateful for the improvements to the system. However, the costs are concerning. The thought of being told to move our straw down further is absurd. Work a plan and make sure there is water left at the higher elevations in the hill country. We feel if LCRA were to manage their water management plan better, that they were not selling so much water, that the straws into the lake that the straws into the lake were depleting water that is guaranteed to firm water customers, then perhaps we on the Spicewood Beach system would not experience the severe drought issues as in the past. That not only affects 1,100 residents, but also an elementary school with 250 to 300 students. However, that should not be the case, and LCRA is the root of the problem. We will look to them to again truck in water at their expense. In conclusion, we are not $1 million subdivision. We are simply a middle-income subdivision with many elderly and retired residents just asking LCRA to do the right thing. It should not matter our wealth. It should only matter that our Texas property rights guarantee us the right to access water. As a $1.6 billion company, it would seem to me that you could manage your plan better for all in-basin firm water customers. Does your plan protect our access to water? If not, why? We depend on LCRA for the management of our water. Water is life. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for your comments, ma'am.
Thank you.
I noticed several other members of the public here from Spicewood Beach. If you don't mind, if part of what you're going to say is redundant, we have a very, very tough schedule today to try to get everything done. If you could confine it to 3 minutes or as close thereto as you can, we'd really appreciate it. So, Jeanette Shirley.
Good morning, and thank you for letting me be here. I appreciate all of y'all very much. And you have a very large job to do. I don't envy it at all. I'm coming from an avenue of having lived through an evening very late in the night that began with my neighbor. The phone rang. I saw my neighbor, thought we were going to have to take him to the hospital, but instead he said, "Wake up, get out, we're on fire. The building next door is on the ground, the metal's twisted, fire's blowing everywhere, get out." Whoa. So it was cold, it was windy, I threw on everything I could, went out the door, moved cars, moved truck. A friend drove from 5 miles from Fall Creek. When she turned on our road, she said she dodged fireballs the size of Frisbees. Okay, and all of this, it turned out that the water hose pipe that was supposed to be our source for fire was not. We had no fire hydrants. They had to go to Ridge Harbor and get water. They had to stop over every single speed bump. It took a lot of time. They fought that fire from 4 in the morning until 3 the next afternoon. And then it continued to relight because I was undergoing all kinds of remodeling. And it was just a disaster. So anyway, I had to end up moving. I looked for 3 months from a place for my cat and I, and once you've had the fire and lived through it, and this makes me get really upset because I'm very passionate about water and having enough water for fire. We've had wildfires. Look at Steiner Ranch. That brushed very close to Windermere Oaks. And had the wind been from the south, as usual, we would have burned. Anyway, it's just the fact that I ended up moving to the only place I could find around that had a fire hydrant out here in Spicewood Beach. I gave $170,000, the money that I got for my insurance, to buy this, what turned out to be a custom Palm Harbor home. It's not a great investment, I've later learned. But I also learned in the first board meeting that, the fire hydrants, sorry, they're here, but they're not used for fighting fire. What? We don't fight any fires with them. And I've really not understood why. Okay, the other night it's in the early morning, I had to eventually call the fire department because I could not get this friggin' alarm to stop, smoke alarm that woke me up. His comment after he hauled off the dud fire smoke alarm He was getting in the truck, and I said, but we have fire hydrants out here. And he says, they're not any good. I was like, great. So my encouragement to all of y'all is that we're really dry out here. I haven't been able to plant anything. I carry water out from my bathroom to water things that I want to keep alive. And I have done that ever since I lived in Windermere, which is where the Spicewood Airport is. And that was, I moved in full-time in 2004. I've watched the lake go up and I watched it go down. And my reading up on this, we've had 7 floods since 1952 that have been our main water injections in this entire time. So I would encourage you, because of the drought and because of the amazing amount of building. Oh, and recently in looking at apartments that are around, I was astounded. All of the showers have this great big pan shower head, and the water comes out at enormous rates. It's just mind-boggling. So I think that we need to educate more people about our need to conserve water. And I would encourage y'all to have a heart for having enough water out there in case we have to fight a fire. Steiner Ranch went on for 9 days. And other fires around have taken many, many days, 6 days to get over with. Thank you for listening to me. I
Thank you for your
appreciate it.
comments. Pat Simic?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the board. Y'all should all have a packet with some photos in it. My name is Pam Simic. I've lived in Spicewood Beach since March of 2001 when I retired from the military. As you look through the photos I provided, I'm here to put a human touch to this story. First, I have a question for y'all. How many of y'all have or have had small children in the home? Bath time, their most favorite part of the day, being able to sit in a tub full of water and play with their rubber ducky or their toy boat. Now imagine you have to tell them, sorry, sweetie, you can only take a bath now on special occasions. I don't know about you, but what do you classify as a special occasion? That's what LCRA told us in 2012. So what used to be their favorite time of the day is now the biggest battle you have to fight every night, getting them to take a military-style shower and if you're not familiar with what those types of showers are, it's you get in the shower, you turn the water on, you get wet, you shut it off, you lather up, and then you turn it back on to rinse off, all while you have shampoo running in your eyes or their eyes. And you have to do that in 5 minutes or less. That was our life and our reality for 2 years. Yesterday, my neighbor, Miss Debbie Brown, asked me, well, how are those 3 water tunnels that are in the deep end of the lake going to affect us up in Spicewood Beach? And I said, look at it this way. You have a swimming pool with a deep end and a shallow end. Deep end being down by where the intakes are. The shallow end is at Spicewood. You start sucking water out of the deep end. What happens to the shallow end? It eventually goes dry. So my question to y'all is, or my comment to y'all is, please don't do to us now what you did to us in 2012. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Brad Knowles?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for letting me speak. You should all have, I hope, a copy of a briefing document that I prepared. I live in Jester Estates here in Austin, Texas, and we haven't had the kinds of water problems that you've heard about over here, but we did live through ice apocalypse and lost our water for about a week. So we have some small idea of what these folks went through. I primarily want to talk about data center water usage, especially AI data center water usage. My former employer is Applied Digital. They specialize in building green AI data centers, and so I have a little bit of experience in this space. I only found out about this meeting last night, so I wasn't able to prepare a written speech to present to you, but I was able to prepare this briefing document with the help of Claude. So, yeah, we used AI throughout our production, and I use it every time I write a document. So the industry benchmarks indicate that a 100 megawatt data center using standard evaporating cooling requires about 528,000 gallons of water per day. Scaling to 250 megawatts, a facility would require approximately 1.3 million gallons per day on average, or approximately 475 million gallons per year. That's direct cooling water only, but that's average. In this place, we need to talk about peak usage. And so under peak load conditions, a 250 megawatt AI data center would use approximately 3 to 5 million gallons of water per day, or up to 1.5 to 1.8 billion, that's B, as in boy, billion gallons annually. Now, if you compare that to closed loop cooling, you're talking about less than 200,000 daily gallons and less than 73 million annual gallons of water. But the other concern here is, and this is brought up by the HARC survey, which you may have heard of recently, you can't just look at the direct water usage costs of an AI data center. You've also got to look at indirect usage costs. So how much water does it take to generate your power that you use? So for a single 250 megawatt facility, that could exceed 6.5 to 8 billion gallons of water annually for a single data center when the power generation usage is required. Now, we're here in South Texas. We all know that this is hot and humid. Unfortunately, standard evaporative cooling doesn't work so well in this environment, about 30% less effective than it is in other environments. And so that means they have to use that much more water to cool everything. I'm going to skip over the rest of the document. I want to get to the recommendations here at the end. The 6 recommendations that I was able to come up with, all of these data centers that are being built, I believe you need to require them to give you a full, complete, mandatory water impact disclosure in their documents. You need for them to detail their cooling technology requirements. Are they using evaporative cooling, or are they used closed loop cooling? Or if they're using closed loop cooling, what are they doing to process the water after it has been turned into a salty, messy brine? What are their water recycling and blowdown treatment plants? Are they sourcing from potable water, or can they use gray water? Because potable water, of course, is what us humans need to consume, but a data center could easily be using gray water. They need to give you 5-year plans for their water usage, not the 1-year plans or the 2-year plans that they might normally come up with. And they need to give you financial assurance. If they violate the terms of the permits that they're given, they need to pay for that. You need to be able to hold them accountable in case somebody like XAI or Grok comes in and does what they did in Memphis, where they lied through their teeth, they cheated, and they stole as much as they possibly could in order to get their building there. Their permit allows them a temporary building. No, they built a permanent data center there. Their permit certainly does not allow them to have like 48 gas-powered generators on site, and they're being taken to task for that. The last thing I want to bring up here is the growth in power requirements for data centers. When you've got a megawatt of power in, you've got a megawatt of cooling that you need to provide to those systems. The previous generation of hardware was 40 kilowatts of power per rack. 18 months later, when NVIDIA released what is now the current generation of hardware. That jumped up to 140 kilowatts of power per rack, more than a factor of 3 increase in just 18 months. NVIDIA is now telling their customers that each rack can be expected to pull up to 600 kilowatts of power per rack. In 3 years, that's more than a factor of 10 increase in their power requirements, which means that's more than a factor of 10 increase in their cooling requirements. This stuff is growing so fast, a 5-year plan isn't going to cut it. You folks need to be looking at your plans on an annual basis, what's happening in the data center industry, so that you can make your plans and adjust your plans for, oh crap, well, this next generation, that's 6,000 kilowatts. Well, now what are you going to do? If they're all using evaporative water cooling, you've got a real problem. So thank you very much, and I appreciate your time.
Thank you for your comments. Carol Phillipson?
Thank you for hearing me speak and my comments. I'm Carol Phillipson. I live in Travis County. Every day, the news reports another proposed or approved AI data center in Texas. With a side note, quote, residents are concerned about high water use. 400 and growing, as reported by Spectrum News. Just this week, a new center in Round Rock. Water is not political. It is essential for life. I realize that all of you have been appointed by Governor Abbott, whose goal is to make Texas the AI capital of the U.S. A great leader depends on advice from knowledgeable staff. It is your responsibility to inform our governor that, unfortunately, Texas does not have the necessary resources to fulfill his dream. Governor Abbott calls AI the Great Texas Gold Rush, but if they are not planned for it, Texas will become the Great Texas Dust Bowl. We are all witnessing historic drought, extreme temperatures coupled with increased population. The promise of temporary jobs from construction and increased tax revenue evaporates like our water, with the huge tax concessions given and higher utility bills for local residents and business. Texas water planning process is built on long-term projections of the state's water needs, relying on past usage trends and historical reported water use. From the Texas Tribune, there is no uniform method of reporting or tracking their water use, and as a result, the state can't accurately predict their future impact on increasing precious natural resource. In practice, the system relies on voluntary compliance or self-reporting. In Texas, companies are required to report historic water consumption, but aren't required to report how much water they expect to consume in the future or where it will come from, unquote. The recent Texas Water Board plan did not include AI centers, nor their secondary use from gas or electric plants to power them. I wrote to the TWDB with my concerns. Tom Barnett, Board Liaison, Executive Administration, replied, quote, the planning process operates on a 5-year cycle. Since establishing the demand projections is one of the first steps in the planning process, the projections in the 2026 regional water plans were adopted a little over 2 years ago. Some early data water use is reflected in these plans, but not in the extent that they are being built today. This will surely be the topic of much discussion in the round of the next planning, and we rely on local public participation to make ground-up regional planning process as robust as possible, unquote. Rapidly expanding AI centers cannot be ignored, nor given special consideration over local residential and business water needs. How does LCRA plan for their water use? As our climate changes and demands for water, so must the process to protect water. LCRA's Texas Water Management Plan should be updated on a more timely basis to keep pace with AI expansion. Plus, more stringent monitoring must be implemented. This will affect you and your family, plus future generations who will be unable to make Texas their home because of your decisions made today if AI centers are not considered in this updated water plan. How will you ensure water for all Texans? Thank you so much.
Thank you for your comments. Shannon Hamilton.
Good morning, Mr. Chair and members of the board. I appreciate your time this morning. My name's Shannon Hamilton. I'm the Executive Director of the Central Texas Water Coalition. Wow, this has been a process, hasn't it? I can't believe 2 years for the water management plan, and here we are today. And reviewing the meeting materials, I noted that the staff mentioned 500 comments were received about this plan. Thought how wonderful it is that so many people care to make sure their voice is heard. I know many of these comments came from deeply concerned entities that I hear from, community leaders and individuals, including the City of Lakeway, the City of Lago Vista, Travis County Commissioners, Burnett County Commissioners, and hundreds of residents. Today, I speak for some in the room, but thousands that are very concerned about how thin our water is being stretched. As I said in January, we appreciate the work that has gone into this plan and the opportunity to be a part of it. We truly do. We believe it can be stronger. This morning, you heard testimony from residents who lived through the 2011 drought when their community ran out of water, a school closed, and water had to be trucked in for basic needs. That is not theoretical. It happened here. That's our biggest concern, the communities in Upper Lake Travis that experience this. The water management plan is designed to ensure firm demands can be met through the drought of record. But we must ask whether the hydrology underlying the model reflects the watershed we have today. Rainfall averages have not significantly declined. What has declined is the inflows. The data indicates the watershed is producing less runoff under similar rainfall conditions than it did historically. Modeling a repeat of the drought of the 50s using historical naturalized flows may not reflect how today's altered watershed would perform. If inflows are structurally lower, then maintaining the modeled storage at approximately 640,000 acre-feet that's in the new plan proposal may not provide an adequate margin of safety, particularly in the Upper Lake Travis regions and those vulnerable intakes. We must also address the growth in the water exports. Demand pressures are increasing both inside and outside the basin. Central Texas is experiencing rapid municipal growth along with expansion of high-demand commercial and industrial users, including those data centers. The 17% growth factor is helpful, but is it enough? Staff referenced Williamson County in the meeting materials as well, that their contracts have been from the 80s and 90s. And during that time, LCRA's authority was intended to serve a limited portion of Williamson County, not to the position that LCRA has now become the major long-term growth supplier outside of the Colorado River Basin. It's my understanding that Williamson County has a primary surface water provider. It's the Brazos River Authority. Meanwhile, LCRA's in-basin firm customers rely overwhelmingly and often exclusively on Lakes Travis and Buchanan. They cannot turn to another river authority if conditions worsen. So the critical question in this times of shortage, will LCRA clearly prioritize in-basin customers? Is the expansion of those contracts, was that scale contemplated when those authorizations were granted? This isn't anti-growth concerns, these are sustainability concerns. We respectfully urge the board to ensure this amendment reflects current hydrological realities, today's demand pressures, and create clear priority for protecting LCRA's in-basin firm customers, the people that depend on you for their faucets to come on. The decisions being made today will shape the reality of the Highland Lakes for years to come, for families, businesses, and communities who depend on the system as their primary water supply. The margin of error is really small. We can't afford to get this wrong. I truly appreciate your time, and on a side note, thank you for updating us on the Water Supply Resource Report. It's good news, and we're anxious to hear more about it. Thank you for your time.
We did receive a lot of comments, and we had to double up to evaluate all these because over 500 of them came in after the February 3rd deadline. So there's been a lot of work done shortly for this meeting to get through them all. But as always, we appreciate those comments. We want to hear them. The next item on our agenda here is discussion of the Water Management Plan Amendment. Monica Masters.
Yes, sir. Good morning. This morning, we plan to present staff's recommendation for the 2032 Water Management Plan Amendment, along with the comments we received during the public comment period and LCRA's responses. And then at the board meeting this afternoon, we will be requesting board approval of the amendment. So first, we'll start by reviewing some of the material presented last month to refresh everyone's memory. Our water management plan is a state-approved plan that governs the operation of LCRA's water supply, Lakes Travis and Buchanan, to supply water to users throughout the basin. It is required by a 1988 court order that determined water rights for the Highland Lakes and the lower Colorado River Basin, and it allows LCRA to provide interruptible water from storage for agriculture, provided we don't impair our ability to meet the needs of our firm customers. It also helps meet the environmental needs of the lower Colorado River and Matagorda Bay. So the reason we have to update the plan is because the Texas Commission on Environmental Quality order approving the current plan required that the update process begin in 2025, which was 5 years after the approval of the last water management plan. Also, the update is needed to protect updated firm demands that are now projected out to the year 2032. As part of the update, we are including hydrology through 2023. So the key requirements of the water management plan, first we have the adjudication order, which provides that when firm demand is less than firm yield, interruptible water may be available. To the extent an interruptible demand exists, stored water should be made available. However, interruptible water should be curtailed as necessary to allow LCRA to satisfy existing and projected firm demands. Next, we have the TCEQ framework, which specifies the following. The plan should curtail interruptible water to maintain minimum storage above 600,000 acre-feet through the period of record, which does include the drought of record. The plan should include water supply conditions providing for curtailment of interruptible water that incorporated combined storage and inflows. And then finally, we have the TCEQ order, which requires that the process be designed to allow meaningful input from interested participants. So next, we're going to go through the staff recommendation for the water management plan update. And this was shared with the participants at the November 20th meeting, and it was posted for public comment from January 5th through February 3rd. The recommendation meets the TCEQ framework. It reflects inputs from the participants, and it results in a minimum modeled combined storage of about 640,000 acre-feet. As part of the board materials in the agenda item, we have provided a summary of the recommended changes along with detailed information on the proposed changes to criteria from curtailment for interruptible ag water and environmental flows. And we're going to go through those key changes as a part of this presentation. First, the things that are not changing. We will be able to meet firm demands without storage, without shortage, and we will be able to maintain a minimum combined storage above 640,000 acre-feet. Also, the TCEQ framework for the water management plan will remain the same with 3 water supply conditions: normal, less severe drought, and extraordinary drought. We'll maintain the 2 evaluation dates for interruptible water availability for agriculture. We'll maintain the look-ahead test and the environmental flow criteria. The key changes from the current water management plan for interruptible stored water for ag include the following. Under normal conditions, the maximum allocation of interruptible stored water is reduced to 125,000 acre-feet from 178,000 acre-feet. For less severe drought, the trigger for entering is raised to 1.7 million acre-feet from 1.5 million acre-feet, and the maximum allocation is reduced to 96,000 acre-feet from 155,000 acre-feet. Under extraordinary drought, the trigger for entering is raised to 1.45 million acre-feet from 1.3, and the drought duration criteria for entering is lowered to 14 months from 18 months. And then for the anytime cutoff, the trigger is raised to 1.1 million acre-feet from 1.0 million acre-feet. So key changes for the environmental flows include the following. For in-stream flows, the obligations for Columbus and Wharton are reduced when combined storage is below 1.3 million acre-feet and further reduced when below 900,000 acre-feet. And the trigger for base dry is increased from 1.8 to 1.86 1.6 million acre feet. And for Matagorda Bay inflows, monthly caps for storable inflows available to the bay are reduced, and the percentage of storable inflows available to the bay are also reduced. Recall that the TCQ framework requires a modeled minimum combined storage of at least 600,000 acre feet. When we first started the process, we put the 2032 demands into the current water management plan model. And not surprisingly, with the increased demand projections, the combined storage falls to about 500,000 acre feet. So under this recommended water management plan amendment, with the 2032 demands, the combined storage does not fall below 640,000 acre feet.
Monica, if you don't mind, and this is kind of,
It's-
go back to that slide. So for the board's benefit, I think this shows the thoroughness and the thoughtfulness and the planning associated with the stakeholder process, with the inflow understanding and real strong, solid science behind this. Understanding the growth we're facing in the basin and how we're trying to address that in a very thoughtful way. So if you have a takeaway off what the work did and the team did, I think this is the takeaway from the board today. You want to talk about that any further for a minute more?
Yeah, so when we started out and you take the current water management plan we have with all of the current triggers, the current set points, everything in the current water management plan, and we update it to the 2032 demands, which is a 17% increase in demands, and then we update it through 2023 hydrology, which captures the newest drought of record for us. It put our storage at 500,000 acre feet. So we had quite a bit of a hole that we had to climb out of to get it above 600,000 acre feet, and we ended up at the 640. So with a little bit here between not changing what the firm demands need and our ag requirements, our environmental flow requirements, we had to move things around to get to where we are now. It's a lot of gives and takes from all the different participants, and they were very thorough in getting to where we are at this point. Good?
Any comments or questions?
Keep going? Yeah. Okay. Under the recommended approach, the maximum amount of stored water made available for the first crop season is 125,000 acre feet, down from 178,000 acre feet. There are 58 years when stored water is supplied for a full first crop, which is down from 65 years. And there are 10 years when there is a partial curtailment or when water runs out mid-season, and this is up from 7 years. Also, there are 16 years when there is no stored water available for first crop, which is up from 12 years in the last plan. Also, under the recommended approach, the maximum stored water made available for second crop is 66,000 acre feet, which does remain unchanged from the current plan. The number of years when stored water is supplied for a full second crop is 57 years, which is down from 64 years. The number of years when there is a partial curtailment or water runs out mid-season is 8 years, up from 3 years. And the number of years when no stored water is available for a second crop is 19 years, which is up from 17 years. Also, under the recommended approach, we have two key environmental results from the model simulations. First, with regard to in-stream flows, the subsistence attainment continues at 99% or better, with the changes in attainment for the various in-stream criteria. Second, with regard to Matagorda Bay inflow results, for the threshold of 15,000 acre feet per month attainment is 96% or better with the recommended approach. And for the various bay criteria, this results in changes in attainment when compared to the current water management plan of 0% to -4%. So those are the recommendations that we're bringing to you today. And we're going to start now with the participant and the public input process. The participant process started at the beginning of 2025 and proceeded throughout the year. LCRA had about 20 individual meetings with interest groups, and we hosted 6 participant meetings from March through November, during which comments were accepted and responses were provided. Meeting materials, comments, and responses were all posted on lcra.org as well. Several updates on the status of the update were provided to the LCRA Board and the Water Operations Committee throughout 2025, and then again last month and then this month. The public comment period opened on January 5th and extended through February 3rd. Items that were addressed as a result of input during the participant process included firm customer demands were updated to be in line with what customers were reporting. We confirmed that firm customer drought response measures would not be included in the modeling for the water management plan in accordance with input from our participants. We changed the trigger for switching in-stream flow criteria, and we changed the triggers for entering less severe drought and extraordinary drought, which also was suggested in the participant process. We received comments from over 500 individuals and entities. Major concerns that were expressed included protections for firm water customers, supply for agriculture and environmental flows, conservation and drought response requirements and out-of-basin use, flexibility of the water management plan and timing of future updates, and the need for future supplies. Specific topics that were commented on relative to firm customer protections included the suggestion to raise the minimum combined storage amount, the suggestion to address dry years, low inflows, and historic droughts in the plan, the suggestion that we protect fixed intake communities in Upper Lake Travis and Lake Buchanan, and concerns over high growth and data centers. In response to these comments regarding firm customer protection, LCRA notes the following. The proposed water management plan maintains a minimum combined storage over 600,000 acre-feet to be available in the event of a drought worse than the drought of record. The proposed water management plan uses TCEQ-approved hydrology through 2023, the most recent year available for this revision. The hydrology includes the 1950s drought and the recent drought of record. Water supply reservoirs must fluctuate to develop water supply, so intakes must be able to respond to these fluctuations. And the proposed water management plan includes significant additional demands. For example, firm demands for hot, dry years are 31% higher, or about 110,000 acre-feet higher than the highest use since 2020. Specific topics that were commented on related to the supply of water for ag and the environment. Suggestions that water for interruptible supply for ag be reduced or eliminated, and a suggestion that we further reduce releases of water for environmental flow downstream of Lake Travis. In response to these comments regarding supplying water for ag and the environment, we note the following. Agriculture use is recognized by the state as a beneficial use of water. The adjudication order provides that when firm demand is less than firm supply, interruptible water should be made available, and that comes with a limitation. Interruptible water is subject to being cut back or cut off during drought to enable LCRA to continue to meet firm demands. The adjudication order also requires LCRA to provide water for environmental flows, and LCRA has a firm water commitment to help meet environmental flow needs. Specific topics that were commented on relative to conservation, drought response, and out-of-basin use included the suggestion that water conservation and drought response be promoted and enforced to a greater degree, including limitations on water use or having grass lawns, concerns about Colorado River water supplies being used outside the basin in Williamson County, and the suggestion that all customers should be required to follow all provisions of LCRA's drought contingency plan. In response to these comments relative to conservation, drought response, and out-of-basin use, we note the following. LCRA is exploring additional water conservation measures, including limitations on outdoor irrigation. LCRA's service area includes Williamson County, and customers have been served in that county since the 80s and 90s, for example, Cedar Park and Leander. And the drought contingency plan exception to requiring a once-per-week watering restriction is limited to retail providers that obtain less than 25% of their supply from the Colorado River Basin. Specific topics that commented on relative to the flexibility of the water management plan and potential future revisions include comments that the water management plan should be responsive to changing conditions, and comments that LCRA should reopen the water management plan earlier than planned if conditions worsen. In response to comments relative to flexibility of the water management plan and the timing of future updates, we note the following. The proposed water management plan includes earlier engagement of less severe drought and extraordinary drought conditions. The proposed water management plan reduces supply of interruptible ag customers and the environment more than the current water management plan in order to be responsive to increased projections for firm demands. And the order approving the water management plan includes triggers for updating the water management plan, and LCRA supports the next order, including an additional trigger based on drought conditions that are worse than we have experienced. Specific topics that were commented on relative to LCRA supplies included concerns that LCRA firm supply may be fully committed and requests that LCRA develop additional supplies. And in response, Arbuckle Reservoir was recently added to the firm inventory. Uncommitted firm supply is still available. And LCRA's water supply resource report identifies potential projects that LCRA may pursue to add supplies, and as you heard earlier, we are working to evaluate the feasibility of an additional off-channel reservoir. Other comments that were received that are outside of the scope of the water management plan included impacts to property values and lake area businesses, aquifer and groundwater issues, limit growth, restrict rock quarries, improve navigation safety, and address vehicles accessing the lake bed. We plan to come back to you later today in the board meeting for board action on the proposed revision. And then following board approval, the next step will be getting TCEQ approval, and that process starts with our application that we expect to submit in early March. Thank you for sitting through that. And are there any questions that you have for us?
I'd just like to thank the staff for all the hard work you've done over the last forever.
Can I have?
It begins and ends always, and it's continuous because water is what we are. We appreciate all the concerns each and every one of y'all brought today. It does not fall on deaf ears. We're very much aware, being the number 2 in power, about all the different things we're fighting and pertains to water. All the issues you brought up, but I think the staff has done an excellent job. Everybody doesn't get everything they want, but we're going to try to do the best we can what we're given, what the good Lord's given us. We can't make it rain, so thank you.
I have a few of my staff members. This is a huge water effort, but I have a few of our folks here. If y'all will stand up.
Thank y'all very much for your hard work, dedication.
Amen. Last item on the agenda is we will now open the floor for public comment related to general items within the Water Operations Committee jurisdictions. Do we have anybody else signed up to speak? I don't think so. Do we have a need to go on executive session? No. With that, I'll adjourn this meeting. The time is, meeting's adjourned at 11:55.